Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about problems of Samsung, aka Samsung versus Apple. So let's dive right into it. Well, first thing you have to understand why Apple is such a big deal. Well, they became recently, as in 2018, $1 trillion brand value. Now, is that a big number? Short answer, it's a ludicrously big answer. Simply because you have to have three zeros in four times. 30, 30, 30, 30, then you have add one to it. So basically, it's a huge company, and inherently, that itself is not such a big deal. There have been many companies. If you especially go with basically inflation adjustment, you will find there are other older companies that have achieved this $1 trillion value in modern times. But Apple just became the first one, so to say, without inflation and all that. But Apple is the one that has ludicrously high brand loyalty. Now, that brand loyalty is the part that is most interesting. That's inherently means they can do no wrong. Flat out, people have generally value their time. So if you ask a dude, it's like, bro, will you sit on a road just so you can buy something which you will get another day, or 5-6 days afterwards you will get it easily? People will say, no, my time is important, I'm not gonna sit on a road. But Apple fans do that. Like, they actually spend day or sometimes days in road just so they can buy the iPhone the moment it's released. Like, it's literally weird behavior. And it's not that, okay, it only happens in some places. No, it's a worldwide phenomenon. Literally worldwide. People do that in a freaking rain. In rain, people stand around the shop. Is like, when it's gonna open, I'm gonna buy the first one. They could easily wait 2-3 days or even 5-10 days, and they will get the product without any hassle and while valuing their time. But people don't. That brand loyalty is the more important part, not the part that they are making product, not that they have experience and all that. That brand loyalty, the fact that people call Apple fans and Apple sheeps, that's the important part. It's like, they can release a laptop, let's say, whose keyboard just gets randomly dies, like, oh, dust particle destroys your keyboard. People will still buy it. You can release a phone whose antenna is so poorly designed or so poorly tested that nobody actually hold it in hand and tested it, and they're like, oh, it has a poor network coverage because you put it in a hand, the antenna gets blocked. Then Apple can say you're holding it wrong. So that level of brand royalty is a very big thing. Every company wants to be that. Intel wants to be that. AMD wants to be that. Samsung wants that. Every company wants that. Lenovo wants that. It's like, I can release garbage and people will buy it. Basically, my poop will become brown gold for them. So that is something amazing. That's the something like, basically, that's what Samsung's true IP is. It's not their patents and all that. No, no, no. That's what their true IP is. Somehow making surprisingly large number of people in surprisingly large amount of countries into that, where it's like, dude, I'm gonna sit on a road in a broad daylight just so I can get the first one. I'm like, wow. That's the interesting part here, not the part that they have $1 trillion, the fact that they have brand loyalty. Like, every people after the pandemic has suffering the loss. Apple is suffering loss, absolutely true, but here's every other company is like 20% loss, Apple is like 3% loss. That brand loyalty, like, people will end other people's lives just for that kind of loyalty. So that's the big part. That's why it's not something that you can just laugh it off. It's something very serious. Then we come to the Samsung. Now, while Samsung is big, how big it is? It's huge, as in ludicrously huge. It's so big that their company is so huge. The consumer electronic part, basically the part that you and I are familiar with, like, Samsung refrigerators, Samsung televisions, Samsung music systems, and all that jazz. Those are like tiny portion. That's like, dude, I don't even count that. That's that tiny. They're big. They have such a wide array of portfolio in terms of profit making machines. They have semiconductor industry, which prints money nowadays, and they have defense contract. Yes, you heard that right, actual defense contract. And they also build world's tallest building when they are free, just chilling around, and a tank or a self-propelled artillery carrier. Just build that. Oh, also shipping containers, because that's important. You have to ship your goods somewhere. They can build the damn ship itself. They have it. And they have hospitals, medical insurance company, medical research center, where they just do research. It's like, dude, it's just a money sink, but they're like, they can afford it. That's how big they are. They're huge, as in ludicrously huge. So this idea is, you have to understand that if Apple ever loses that brand loyalty, they toast, because their expenditure is like ludicrously high. So in case of Apple is very on a very nice edge. Basically, if that brand loyalty goes, they did. In Samsung's case, is like, dude, where the defense contract's gonna go? It's gonna stay in the same place. What happens to the buildings and all that? Again, even this building is bankrupt. They got the money, so they have so much tangible assets that they don't even have to think about, like, what Samsung electronic division is doing. Because if the familiar familiar with like note debacle of battery going boom, is that in that same day when that news broke, like Samsung battery has defective system in that and they had to be recalled, the stock price generally in normal day-to-day life supposed to go down, they went up in that day. Why? Because other divisions were like doing so good. So that's the reality of it. They have ludicrously large, vast, diversified portfolio. They are as close to umbrella corporation as you're gonna get in real life. So they have that part. On top of that, they are also very diversified in their manufacturing prowess. They are not like, okay, China only. No, 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 they're not making the mistake of Apple. They have Vietnam and India, and these are the three major ones. They have also another small one, so they do not even have to think. They have like, if one goes down, they're like, dude, I got this. They will like, okay, instead of making $1 billion a year, I'm gonna make $500 million. That's how big they are. That's how diversified they are. So it's huge. It's ludicrously huge. So what is the problem with this kind of infrastructure, with this kind of might? Why the heck they are not the giant that they're supposed to be? Like, it's like hidden. Why the heck it's hidden? The reality is they do not put, like, specifically Samsung consumer department do not put effort in what we call experiences. Basically, how does that product feel? No thought was put into that, flat out. And I have used old Samsung phones, as in Samsung C100. According to Samsung, that was the first slim color phone. I have used that. It was a feature phone. It was quite well done. But after that, it's like, dude, nobody puts any thought into it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna making a product. A consumer have to use it. Is it actually useful? Like, is it like have a less friction in the while use case scenario? So whether I like Apple or not like it, I do respect the fact that they have actual groups of people whose sole job is make the damn experience usable, make the damn experience pleasant. Basically, like, click here, this is what happens. Click here, this is what happens. Simple, elegant. You have to spend time on that. Now again, sometimes they get a bit overboard. They are like starting to remove ports from a laptop. That's a bit too much simplification, but you get the point. At least somebody is there whose sole job is to figuring out the experience part. Another aspect, they have too messy company. They are so big, they are not even called a corporation. They are called conglomeration because they have 80 companies inside them. They are huge. They are humongous. And the biggest outcome of that, the weird outcome, is that the R&D plus product, if you have a company that has a lot of R&D budget and an actual manufacturing might to actual manufacture it, the product should be awesome. Product should be like butter beyond butter. But reality is we have a lot of friction. Why is that? Because Samsung semiconductor does not jive well properly with the normal department. What does that mean? Think of it this way. Samsung made OLED technology. Awesome. Samsung has put a lot of money, R&D into that, and they started to experiment with their phones. So OLED started to come with Samsung phone very early on. Awesome, everything. Well, here's the deal. Samsung is the only company that started to manufacture 120 hertz display very early on for mobile phone. So Razer, Asus, all of them, they were giving 120 hertz display rate before anybody else. Who do you think was the manufacturer of the display? It was Samsung. So reality was like, even though Samsung was making it, they were not like, the consumer department was not taking it seriously. So if that happened, like consumer department was like, okay, let's take it seriously, let's say I'm going to give that, Samsung would have been in a position where they could have 3 years of lead advantage. Like, yeah, so high refresh rate, yeah, we have been using 120 for like past 3 years. They had that kind of advantage. They did not utilize it. Another aspect that is truly frustrating to as a consumer is like, Samsung makes memory chips. How big? They're the hugest out there, like flat out. They are huge. They can compete against any company and still come out on top. That's how big their chip manufacturing department is for the memory department. So they make memory with, again, multiple categories. You have speed, you have throughput, and you have endurance. So again, if you can buy in for their desktop SSD, you can buy something that has like, okay, 2-year warranty. You can spend a lot of money, which I did. I do not know whether I should have done that, but I did that. So I have a 256 GB SSD which has warranty of 10 years. 10 years warranty. That's how reliable those chips are. And again, depending on your scenario, again, unless a power fault happens, it should not go down no matter what happens. Then they have throughputs, the chips that are designed for like oomph, the amount of oomph to carry data from one point. That's the choke point of every mobile system. Now people like the idea of iPhones are smooth. Now I always find that weird. It's like, how the heck is smooth when its RAM is small? Because the throughput from the main flash chip is so damn high, and Samsung is the one making it. They still don't use it in their own system. Basically, they've tried to put it as cheap as possible. Only in their ultra high end they truly started to give the chip that has throughput, where it's like, okay, I can handle thousands of random reads and write. Don't worry about it. It's like you can have apps running open in background. I got that. So that inherent aspect is like, where it's like R&D is making the magical portion that people want to have, and the product department is not syncing with it. That's the problem. And then in terms of product wise, like for example, Exynos. Everybody hates Exynos for some reason. It's like, okay, but think of it this way: Exynos is an amazing thing because this company started Exynos quite early on, as in like smartphone world. It's quite early on, but they starting to like when they started, they were like 40% inferior to Qualcomm offerings. Now they are only 10 to 5% inferior, and flat out in certain applications they actually exceed it. So how the heck that happened? Again, a lot of research in silicon department. Then why the heck Exynos is not the primary carrier for Samsung? Simply because Exynos requires you to fine tune the freaking operating system. They did not do that. Like, it's not Google's fault. Like, Samsung can optimize it. That's the whole reason why OnePlus phones are so optimized. Somebody has to sit down and it's like, okay, let's optimize the damn thing, even though they are manufacturing it right now. They did such a very big deal right now where they had a collaboration with AMD, and that's a huge thing because they want to put AMD Radeon level graphics card on a Exynos. If they did that, if they successfully pull that off, their chips will literally skyrocket every other thing. And right now mobile gaming is the hot thing. So if they can do that in, let's say, their target is 2021 product launch. If they did that, but let's say by 2022 they are like, yeah, they have actual PC level graphics on a mobile chip, they will mind-bogglingly awesome. But here's the still would be unoptimized because the product department and the R&D department, they do not make love as much as they should. So that's the inherent problem. Now, what is the issue with all that? What does that translate to for you and me in day-to-day life? They have too many options. It's like every time somebody complains with Samsung, is like, bro, I think your phone is slow. So instead of going back to the roots and figuring out the problem, they're like, let's make a new model. So what does that mean? That inherently means they have way too many non-optimized designs. Apple rarely gives you option with RAM, or never gives you option with how much RAM you have to choose. Why? Every processor has a optimum amount of RAM. That's why if you buy a server processor and buy a basically desktop processor will be, let's say, right now would be limited to 256 GB of RAM, while the server one would be limited to 2 terabytes. Now it's like, who cares? No, it matters. Like, server ones will be used in rendering farm. That's why it's important. So same way in mobile processor also, each processor has an inherent optimum zone. Basically, like, if you feed me let's say 4 GB RAM, I'm gonna work. If you're gonna feed me 8 GB RAM, I'm gonna be awesome. What will happen if you feed me 16 GB? I'm not gonna work. I will slow down because I do not have the memory addressing ability to address all of that properly. Again, these are mobile chips, not computer chips. So that's, there is an inherent optimized zone. So Samsung can easily remove the 4 GB one easily. Why? Because they themselves manufacture. They do not have to buy it from some other company. They can just bulk buy from Samsung itself 6 GB ones and remove the 4 GB one. Flat out, they will destroy other competitions just by brute force. Samsung, Android always uses brute force to solve the problem. They could do that, but they don't. Like, because they just release the product. It's like, okay, now we have one variant which is 4 GB, another variant which has 6 GB. Inherently that creates a lot of options, which are not a good thing. How many options in India? 10,000 rupees to 20,000 rupees is a very sweet zone. I never like the idea of buying very expensive phone. Basically that's 200 to $300 kind of phone range. We are talking 350 if you are like precise about that. So 10 to 20,000 range, it's a range, and it's a very optimum, like it's a mid-range kind of phone. They have 41 total options. Yes, you heard that right. 41 different boxes will be created in order to sell the phone for those range. And I'm talking about color variant, I'm talking about RAM variant, I'm talking about flash memory variant. Because yes, not only RAM is selectable, you also have like 64 GB, 128 GB, 256 GB. I'm like, what? Like, there is an optimal, and especially for phones in this range, they also have SD card, which Samsung itself makes. So they do not even have to give ludicrously large memory on that. They can be just like, okay, let's cut out two things. Let's remove 256, remove 64, only one thing. They can literally simplify all the product. Like, this many products, they have 12 models, 12 independent model in price range of that point. It's ludicrous. There should not be more than three. And again, in Indian rupees, there we have a lot of latitude. So 50-60,000 is what we call, like, okay, now you are spending ludicrous amount of money. Lakhs, you are spending money equivalent of a cheap car. So that's the whole problem with that. Because they have so many options, because they have so many varieties, their programming division, their software division only ends up spending time like just barely assembling the parts together, basically assembling the kernel and doing the things. They do not spend time polishing it. And you can see that, like, I'm using Samsung and I have been using it for like around 20 years, so to say. So not 20, I think, yeah, 20 is a bit much, 15. So the software is flat out no longer polished, it's not optimized. They have everything. They can actually talk to semiconductor devices like, dude, this micro architecture that you're building in Exynos, how does it work? We're gonna spend some time to polish it. They can do that. They can make phone that will make Apple look like, bro, what the hell? Yeah, you keep buying from our OLED technology, keep buying the RAMs things and all that. They can literally be in that high end, that high polish, where it's like, why the heck one plus phone is so popular in India? Simply because it's polished. You're spending 30,000 rupees, but the phone feels like 30,000 rupees. It does not feel like, yeah, it has a lot of bells and whistles, but it's not polished. That's the main frustrating part. Like, this many options, no programmer can manage that. And that also was the like, only recently Samsung actually started to try to have security updates, try to have OS updates and all that. And again, you have to update 12 models versus updating 3 models. That's the whole point. That is the inherent issue. Like, somebody took every time somebody complains, like, yeah, micro performance of the lens is not good enough. Yeah, let's put another fourth camera for that. And there is like a model, and pricing is so convoluted. I'm like giving you a price range, but if you actually sat down with a pen and paper and try to figure out, you would be confused. Like, this price, let's say 15,000 rupees, there is 8 models. Each of the models would be like, do you need that macro lens or not? Do you need that ultra wide or not? Do you need the fifth camera module or not? Do you need 4,000 milliamp hour battery? Do you need 6,000 milliamp hour battery? It's literally insane. They have too many fragmentation, and they cannot support it. No company can support this. So outcome is really bad for the user, like you and I. It's a very bad outcome. So what we can do as a customer? So right now there is not that many non-Chinese brand. If you really want to look into that, you don't have too many options. You have Apple and Samsung, and I inherently don't like Apple, not because they're company, because they are company, they want to make profit, but they are unethical to a point where it's like, dude, that's flat out illegal. Just because you can throw money at a judge and you can get the verdict, but that's flat out unethical. Like, every book on ethics, every law, every rule, you just break them just because of the money that you have behind it. It's just unethical. It's like, dude, I bought the laptop that you sold me, okay, and I went to your repair shop. It's like, bro, repair this puppy, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna repair it for almost 80% of the charge of the original device. I'm like, yeah, I can't afford that. I'm gonna, get some other body. I am making that choice. You are taking that choice away from my hand by destroying the independent repair shop. It's like, dude, I took that risk. I made that choice. You are removing my choice out of my hand. Again, that's why I hate this. Like, you have $1 billion. You can spend that $1 billion much better than, like, trying to blow out every single company that is trying to repair your devices. And I understand that. Like, Apple had that, like, magical fling, and it's starting to fall apart. Is the fact is the new iPhone sale is not growing, like, because the people who wanted to have an iPhone, they already have iPhone, and the people who could not afford it, even if you made a cheaper iPhone, your profit margin won't be that high. So they are stuck in a position where they're like, yeah, it's not looking good. So that's why they are going into streaming services, and they even tried to make self-driving cars and all that, because inherently their golden goose is no longer like giving as much egg as it used to. So they are trying to squeeze out everything. That's why they removed ports. Port removal was not like, we're just gonna remove port. They removed ports specifically, so you have to buy dongles, and dongles cost them $2 to make, and they sell you for $99 or $300. So the profit markup on those puppies are huge, and they are printing money on that. That's why they did that. So flat out unethical things. And not to mention, because of the Apple sheep mentality that people don't like. If Samsung had somebody who's doing the lithium ion battery, and it had issue, what could Samsung do as a company? They're like, bro, give us back, we'll fix it. Now I'm old enough where Nikon, I'm saying, Nokia had the same issue with BL5DC, and it was all over India. So hundreds of millions of devices had to be recalled. So it's a very big thing. I'm familiar with this, like, battery recall and all that. So again, Samsung did what it's supposed to, but every Tom, Dick and Harry, piled up on that. Did Apple did a recall when their antennas were not configured properly in a mobile phone? No. Did Apple did a recall when your keyboards was so poorly designed, so inefficiently tested? It's like dust particle can destroy it. They had to do a freaking lawsuit to get that changed. Lawsuit. Like, enough people got pissed off, enough people got mad, that enough people like actually put their money into a law firm. Is like, bro, destroy Apple. So you have to understand that, but that inherently hurts everybody. Why? Think of it this way. Lenovo used to make ThinkPads. Those ThinkPads were built like a brick and performed like a tank, flat out. From 1999, you still have running laptops. Like, still running. Yeah, they're still running. But then why the heck modern laptops does not? Because every time you go, Apple. So every engineer who's working in Lenovo is like, why the hell I will put like enough effort to like actually design drain holes in my keyboard, so even if liquid spill happens, the laptop survives. It's like, why the hell I will do that? I will also make cheap garbage, which, like, because soldering everything on motherboard is actually cheap. It's actually cheap because it does not require a human hand to, like, screw things down. It's surprisingly difficult. So removing that cost, measure and save cost and give you a crappier product, every company is starting to follow Apple, because Apple has that brand loyalty, and every company wants that, because again, AMD wants that to happen, Intel wants that to happen, Samsung was that, but it has not happened, and I hope it never happens to any other company where they can be like, this is a turd, here pay $1 billion for it. Like, even monitor stand, that was like the first time I saw like the Apple conference, people like, dude, what the hell, 999 for a freaking monitor stand which does not even have like cool things and all that. So that was the first time I'm like, wow. So you have to understand that. What about other options? Let's say you are not happy with Samsung or Apple. Do you have any other option? Unfortunately, not really, because while Nokia is trying to come back, they made the same mistake of Samsung. There are like too many options, not enough polished in the software, and not even available everywhere. Now Sony is trying to come back, and they are doing something well, not making hundreds of models. So that was quite good. And Sony had the issue of like people fighting inside the company, where they're like their Alpha division will not share the autofocus algorithm with Xperia division. Xperia will not sell the autofocus basically touchscreen algorithms with this. That's why basically Alpha cameras have touchscreen, like actual hardware. You can touch to focus, but you cannot touch the menu, because again that technology is directly proportional to Sony's I'm saying Xperia department. So they had a lot of let's destroy each other inside the company. So they are trying to fix that, and result is quite awesome right now. You can buy Sony phone and you will truly be surprised how quality the camera is. In terms of like the autofocus, it's awesome. In terms of the colors you get, it's more similar to a APS-C camera than to a image that is pre-processed to hell and infinity and beyond. So it is a good option, Sony, but it's a bit expensive, and not to mention in India it's ludicrously expensive. So I'm not that big of a fan. Nokia did try to launch some options, but again does not have the throughput that Samsung has, so the price is still high. So as a customer, what should we do? Well, we have to be a bit more mindful. What do we support? How do we support? And how do we make the choices of buying component? And because of this fragmentation, I don't see it stopping. We have to really spend time. Like basically, we have to start using spreadsheet. Thankfully, Google Sheets are free. So that's what my message is. Like that's the main problem with Samsung. It's like 41 options. So this was my presentation on what's the main problem with Samsung. I hope you liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I'd urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment, and please leave a comment because I try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.